Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Day After Podcast. My name is John. I'm here with Haley as well.
Hello!
And it's going to be a weird, fast one. We won't bore you with a lot of the plot details or a general synopsis. I'm going to go more for feeling here. Welcome to a review of 2020's 12-episode anime Wonder Egg Priority. Just before we get going, trigger warning on everything.
Just everything. Everything you might have trauma with, it's here.
Suicide. Self-harm.
Yes.
Abuse. Rape. Bullying. Cyberbullying.
Weird AI shit that doesn't make sense.
Gender dysphoria. It's all here.
Yeah.
It's extremely not experimental. Not innovative either.
Yeah, it's so John mentioned this is going to be a short one. I do want to let this say its piece, but there's only so much you can say about a 12-episode series of anything.
Right.
Without parsing out every single detail.
Sometime down the road, we'll do Fooly Cooley. And what do you want to say besides it's just bullshit for 6 episodes?
And it knows what it is. Anyway.
This is Haley put it really well. This feeling that she's getting is, so let it be known. At first, Haley was not really a fan of Madoka Magica, a similarly sized show.
Yes, Puella Magi was recommended to me in college by a very good friend of ours, and I tried watching it. Love Magical Girl anime. I watched a good chunk of Precure. I watched almost all of Sailor Moon. Shugukara Stands is one of my favorite animes of all time. But I didn't like the subversion that is constantly reminding you that it's a subversion. And that, to me, was what Madoka Magica was.
It drew you out of its storytelling devices because it was trying to earn points.
Yeah, like the cute sidekick is constantly reminding you that it's a cute sidekick. And they literally call them Magical Girl. And it's like, oh, isn't it so deep and awesome and weird? Wonder Egg does this very, very well.
It is using a Magical Girl framing device to explore significantly darker themes.
Yes, and I would argue that I haven't seen Puella Magi, I haven't seen Madoka Magica in a long time. But this to me seems more. It's not really a Magical Girl anime. It just has elements. It's more of a drama, where Madoka was the opposite. Madoka was trying really hard to be a subversive Magical Girl anime and try to deal with drama, and it kind of failed at both. Wonder Egg deals into really, really deep shit. So we have 3 shows going on at any one time. I had picked 2. John wanted something short form and something that was a little less funny and kiddie.
I went in dead blind. I was like, what is this? And you read the blurb of episode 1. You're like, oh, this kind of seems like Shugokara a little bit.
Yeah. And I don't remember reading the blurb of episode 1 and what my thought was, but I was like, oh, yeah, let's try it. I mean, it looks pretty. I like the thumbnails and stuff. And, suicide within the first 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You see a girl's head smashed on a sidewalk. And it only gets weirder from there.
Yeah, weirder, worse, everything. This is an exploration that sometimes doesn't... Let me just ask you a yes or no question. Would you recommend this?
Yes, I would.
I would also.
I don't know what... I would not recommend this if you're somebody who has thought of self-harm. Personally know somebody who has committed suicide or has childhood trauma associated with those disorders.
Or any of the things. I know that it was a joke when we listed all those things.
Seriously.
But maybe sit this one out and go watch Cowboy Bebop or something.
But if you consider yourself a relatively emotionally stable person who enjoys exploration of these themes, you're going to have a great time.
You will enjoy the exploration of these themes even if they don't appear to have enough time to do it.
Yeah, well, let's focus on the ending first. I kind of want to talk about the bulk of the series, really episodes 1 through 10, and we'll get to the other 2 a little bit later.
Yeah.
So the series follows the storylines of 4 girls, the one we spend the most time with, Ai.
And the other 3.
And the other 3. And Ai is interesting. She has for a while there, she has the issue where main character is boring, so cool stuff can happen to her. The Harry Potter problem.
They all get enough characterization, I think.
But yeah, that's one thing I really like about this, is while this is exploring these dark themes, it explores some really, really in-depth characterization. This is also one of the only anime that I can watch it and I'm absolutely 100% believe these girls are 14.
Yes, very, very. I really enjoy children that are written as children.
Yes.
And teens as teens and so on.
Yeah, these are not like 10-year-olds posing up in a junior high school, and these are not actual written adults in a child body.
Yeah, that is different and weird. there's no like, are you looking for a taste? You pretty much know if you want it or not. But if in case you don't care, or Mike is watching, hi Mike.
Shout out.
In case you're interested, I guess, these 4 girls have found an institution whereby they can bring back a victim of suicide that they knew in their life, provided that they save enough of these other suicide victims from these creepy monsters. And I understand that monsters of the week, almost literally, and weapons and almost transformation sequences are pretty par for the course for Magical Girl anime. The poor fuck who read there's a website for recommending anime, and somebody said, I swear to God, if you like Wonder Egg Priority, you might like Digimon.
Oh, Jesus.
Not even close.
No. This has the trappings of a Magical Girl anime while actually being a drama.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So you have the main character, and her evolution is really the core of the series. She's trying to save her friend Koito. The other 3, I didn't want to just shove them under the rug because they're really, really cool personalities, because you think you're getting tropes, and you're actually getting really full-fleshed, amazing characters.
Yeah, and I didn't want to just list them, but Nehru is it's really hard to take seriously. Childhood owner of his own company. Thanks, fucking Richie Rich, for ruining that here in the West.
Yeah, you kind of ignore that. Really, she's the dairy of the group. She's the straight lace. She's the tough girl. She's the no emotion. And you find out kind of her backstory, which I don't want to fully develop here, but these girls are dealing with heavy emotions connected to friends who committed suicide, and you're constantly reminded of that. So yeah, Nehru, there's always a lot more to unpack than just, oh, I'm the most adult one and emotionally mature one.
Right, and your Ritsu, your idol character, it doesn't shy away from the fact that sometimes everybody is a victim when it comes to suicide. Sometimes, you said a hurtful thing without meaning to.
Yeah.
And you deal with that.
Yeah, Rika, you think you're just getting the spunky idol sport fanatic, the girl everybody wants to be friends with, and you find this this really deep well of self-harm and parental issues, and that's really, really interesting. And then you have my favorite character,
right,
Momoe, who's dealing more with the gender identity thing. Now, she herself does not identify as male. Other people assign that to her. And it actually asks some interesting questions about identity and stuff like that there. So there's some really, again, I don't want to just don't want to give you a play-by-play of these characters, but I do want you to know who they are.
I'm going to ask Twitter later, hey, this is the first time I've ever watched an anime that tackles gender dysphoria. How did it do if you've watched this? Because it's uncomfortable to watch her episode. Yes. As most episodes are.
Yeah, and really, that's a point to drive home. Every episode of Wonder Egg Priority will make you uncomfortable.
All right. Then they have 2 episodes that kind of go off the rails. Yeah.
So, but the core, the monster of the week, you feel like it's going to get written off, but they're actually really, really cool and dealing with some good emotions.
Even though it focuses on something else. In the last 2.5 episodes, you begin to understand what this institution is, and that's let's not describe episode 11, but it really blows the lid off something, and a lot of people. I like Death Parade, and my wife does not as much like Death Parade, and her one criticism, and I totally am on board with this, like, it's okay if you feel this way, she didn't want an explanation about how the afterlife works.
Yeah.
She didn't want, like, in the same way, I didn't really want an explanation about why this Wonder Egg facility exists.
Yeah, it is so much more interesting to delve into these girls and trauma, and how 14-year-old girls deal with trauma and heavy emotions. I made a comment in the last episode that for these girls, it's easier for them to fight monsters than to deal with their emotions.
Right.
Which is why they're framed up this way. Then you get episode 11, which, for no reason, gives you an entire backstory of this world and what happened and why these girls are doing what they're doing.
A really fucked up, super interesting backstory on its own, but not one that fits into a show that's already pressed for time, Yuri on Ice style.
Yeah, it's already a short show, and you kind of bog it in with this weird, like, incredibly interesting, but not really relevant backstory. that I don't, and I'm a whore for backstory, but I'm just like, why is this here? What is going on? What does this mean?
Right, and that's a lot of, I think that's the core of the series. We could just list all the philosophical ideas that it brings up.
We already did with the trauma list.
Pretty much
with the trigger warning.
No, there's even some things about identity and how you see yourself.
Yes.
But I would take a small break here because some weird formatting errors. I apologize. We're filming this in early June. We did get word that in 2 to 3 weeks, a 1-hour special is coming out that I guess attempts to wrap up the plot of this. I don't know what the purpose is, but it's supposedly an hour long. So if we intend to watch that, or we end up watching it, the review of it, we'll go right here. Okay, it's 25 days later, and we just had a chance to watch the 45-minute OVA of Wonder Egg Priority.
I would call it an OVA, despite its weirdness.
It is a 45-minute bonus 13th episode entitled My Priority, which consists mainly of 22 minutes summarizing the previous 12 episodes you watched, and 20 minutes of new content.
Yes.
And our gripe is not with that setup, the fact that half of it is summary.
I mean, that's a little weird, but whatever.
The fact is, we have other problems with it.
Why is this here?
Why did they not put this with the rest of it?
Yeah, I mean, really, number one, with the setup is just recap and then episode. I mean, it's a normal length episode, normal shit goes on. Normal for the show anyway. And I'm just like, why do it this way, number one? And number two, this episode doesn't say a goddamn thing.
And honestly, I have two things that I really want to make clear. One, I am not griping on the placement, the timing, or the structure of this episode one bit. The problem is, it did the worst thing an OVA could do. It makes me recontextualize the previous 12 episodes and realize I didn't really like this show as much as I did in the first place.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting listening to 25 days ago when we actually talked about this podcast, because I do remember there are parts of the show that are really, really good, and it gets just swallowed up by a weird, convoluted mess.
You said in the middle. That's okay, babe. You said in the middle. This show kind of has Shyamalan energy.
Yeah, it does. Definitely like Kingdom Hearts 2 energy as well, which I think I did say in the actual podcast. This show seems like it's trying to be really deep and talk about death and suicide and girls' emotions and all that stuff, while at the same time just trying to be, I'm a cutesy shoujo magical girl anime.
Which can be done. The first couple episodes, 3 episodes, are very, very good in this show.
And there's a lot of episodes, like a Rika standalone episode where you find out why Chiaki killed herself.
Right.
All the standalone episodes are really, really good. And when it actually does comment about death and suicide and what have you, it's really good. But we have to have Nehru owns a corporation and made fake people and that whole dumb bullshit with Frill.
I'm going to make a statement, and I think that you're going to agree with me. This show shares most, if not all, of the same positives as Death Parade. Is that it's kind of like a high-ish concept supernatural thing, but with a lot of standalone episodes. And when the standalone episodes are good, they knock them out of the park.
Yeah. Yeah, and Death Parade was good earlier.
But this the same thing. It just less so with Death Parade, but this is asking 25 interesting questions and not even beginning to answer any of them.
Yeah, and it by the time it goes to answer something, it's already been caught up in some other weird side tangent that doesn't mean anything. So can we just summarize what happened in this episode?
You've got 45 seconds.
Because I do want to tell you how little happened in this episode.
Ready, go.
We had the recap that was 22 minutes. We figured out why Koto killed herself. We figured out that Koito and everybody who was brought back has no memories of what happened. Nehru disappeared, left Eye the rat. People are still kind of fucked up about what happened to their pets. We decide that Nehru's just a machine and she's trying to be human again, and therefore we don't want to save her. And then at the end we decide we do.
23. This is it made me realize in the context of the rest of the story, not a ton happens.
No.
And I'm bothered because this is when Rick and Morty, and I know it's like we've been teasing we'll eventually watch the series. I'm thinking about it right now.
Yeah.
When Rick and Morty tackles philosophical ideas, it's not to go, here's the cool thing about philosophy. It's like, you should go read some of this because it's really fascinating stuff. That it's not good when a show is like, wow, I want to read more about that idea instead of exploring it.
Yeah.
And
I really like I mentioned this as a Kingdom Hearts 2 problem. It's not that bad. Because Kingdom Hearts 2 Kingdom Hearts in general just talks about random concepts with buzzwords stuck through the sentences. And honestly, that I don't mind because I can just turn my brain off. This introduces some really neat concepts and explores some really fascinating ideas and does absolutely nothing with them.
Which is I don't want to dump on Mother's Basement, but I just want to complain about a structure of his.
Mm-hmm.
He's made anime his job, which means that every anime season, when all the anime come out, he wants to do here's what you should watch. Here's what I kind of like. But because of because of timing and how fast the anime comes out, he has to do these things after 1 or 2 episodes have come out. So he doesn't have a lot to go on. And this was like after 2 episodes, his anime of the year.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're watching it, is because I had such high praise heaped on me, but I don't think that 2 good episodes can make a good season.
No, and you know, like those first few episodes, they're really, really good. Right. And honestly, if you are interested in that, we can give you an episode list of here's all the good ones, ignore everything else. But I think I just don't know why the show chose to do it that way. Because you've shown me that clearly you have good ideas and you can explore them and you can make good episodes, and then you just choose not to.
Well, and I didn't talk about this in the previous podcast, but this show has a bit of a rushed, toxic production schedule.
Oh, yeah.
The artists work way harder than they probably should have, and in an industry where artists, especially in Japan, are very underpaid and very overworked. This show is very good. I'm going to go ahead and say too good looking for its own good.
Yeah.
I would much rather some of that money be spent on script passes or a better story.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's the animated fur problem. I'm like, your money could have been spent better. I would clean this up, please. Give it more time.
Yeah, or just like trim the fat a little. I mean, kill your darlings a little bit here.
Yeah.
Because again, there is some good things going on here, and I had a train of thought of what I was gonna say, and it vanished while you were talking. But yeah, like trim the fat a little, like see if you can get it a little more focused. Oh, and I remember what I was gonna say. So this show is one of those shows that pretty much every time an episode ends, you are left with more questions.
Oh, it's got the lost problem.
And when the series ends, you're left with even more questions. My issue is a good chunk of those questions were only dealt with in 1 episode and then never reappear again.
They're concept questions.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Okay, there's this corporation that a little girl is in charge of. Okay, number 1, why is she in charge of it?
It's
and it makes little girls, artificial intelligent little girls, for apparently no reason.
Okay, I guess this is spoiler territory. We'll take it. I didn't want to interrupt your
No, that was it.
Here's the one thing that people dunked on Yuri on Ice for is that it is very rushed. It was from a person who have very, very, very passionate about ice skating and figure skating.
Yes.
And she had 2 options. She could give you what we eventually saw, which was 12 extremely rushed ice skating episodes,
which are pretty good.
You know, we're not commenting on the quality of Yuri on Ice here. Or she could have told half the story. Pray to God she gets picked up for a 2nd season.
Yeah.
Neither of those are really that palatable. But the problem is, even when it's rushed,
yeah,
you're still getting the figure skating action you came from. When you're brushing by the topics such as rape and abuse and end of life rights.
Yeah.
That it really kind of pissed me off.
Yeah, the whole linchpin of the show, which the whole Ai's entire character motivation, trying to figure out why Koito died, ends in 3 sentences.
That sucks.
That happens off screen. Like, we are watching a random montage of other shit while the teacher tells her why her friend died.
Yikes.
And that's like, and that little 3 sentences, that little bit has nothing to do with the rest of the episode. Which is infuriating.
We're going to bring you back now to the rest of the podcast. We really do apologize for this weird tonal shift in the middle. We didn't expect our opinion to change that much in 25 days.
Yeah.
It'll be wild when this comes back out. Thank you for joining us. We now return you to your regularly scheduled podcast.
To that point, the lack of wrapping up, the last episode 12, touches on some good points, but it's more of a wrap-up of Aya's story and not the story in general, which was made just confusing by episode 11. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get. Yeah, it's certainly more to take in. It's more dense near the end. But
I gets her emotional conclusion and her emotional payoff, and that's really cool, and I like that. But there's all this shit that we introduced in episode 11 rearing its ugly head, and I'm like, what the? No!
Not an ugly head, but we'll leave that to you to kind of explore. Mike is going to come by in a couple of weeks and go, what the fuck were you guys talking about? Guys, I think that's been a brisk review of 2020's Wonder Egg Priority.
This really is an anime you should go experience rather than watch a review of this. I mean, granted, if you're watching this review, you've probably seen it already, but if you haven't, I encourage you to go actually watch the show or watch it again. Maybe we missed some stuff. Maybe it's something you have to see multiple times to get all the weird, different plot lines up.
Certainly looking forward to that hour finale.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us, and we will see you for something a little more lighthearted down the road.